So if you've been on the website and you happen to read my article on Ocala, in it I talk about scouting the interiors of the clear cuts to find nice deer runs, intersections of deer runs. And at the end of the article I mentioned about putting together a video on how I use Google Earth to pre-scout these areas and some of the interesting things I discovered in all my scouting and using Google Earth. So first I'll start off and just go over a few things about Google Earth, some of the tools I like to use. In this upper left-hand corner, there's a little push pin. This will actually just allow you to mark spots, just like a push pin on a board. You can change the color, you can change the icon, and label it how you want. Here I have my stand for this year. It's a new stand I've yet to hunt. I have it marked here. Another tool I use a lot of, third box over, these dots that are connected, this allows you to put in a path. When I'm out doing scouting, I'm always saving my tracks. I save tracks of all my trails going in and out of my areas. And then when I can come back, I transpose them onto Google Earth. So I can have them marked. I can then do measurements from them. I can see how far of a walk it is, if you're going to time, how much time you need to get in there to your stand. Nice to do. You can change the color of these. Is another thing you can do. Nice feature to mark things. I'll mark deer runs as well with this. Another tool, if you're looking to do some just general measurements in your pre-scouting, this little icon up here, the upright ruler, this allows you just to click 2 points and get a measurement for it. So it's about 70 yards there. If you want to measure the distance across here, you can do that. It's handy to have as you're pre-scouting, or if you just want to know how far of a walk, how much of a trail you're going to have to clear to get to the edge. You can get an idea from there. Another tool that I use a whole lot of, and it's very important to this video, unfortunately it's right off the capture screen in this lower left hand corner just below here, the little box that says 1995. If you click that box, it's going to take you back to the 1995 image of Google Earth. It's also going to bring up this little slider in the upper left, and as you click this arrow, it'll move you forward in time to each updated image. And you can see how the forest has changed over years. What's very useful about this is you can date the clear cuts. You can date the trees by going back to seeing when the clear cut was done. Now in this spot that I'm hunting here this year, and I'll go through kind of how I found everything, as you look at it, the trees are fairly still close together. They're packed in there fairly tight. There's some opening spots starting to develop. Some of the trees die off. But in these tightly packed areas, it tends to create a canopy that doesn't allow the light to the forest. So you don't get a lot of underbrush growing once the trees have grown up and around everything. And as you get in here, you can find deer runs and openings, and that's where I like to look for a good place to hunt. So in looking at this area, as we go back to 1995, you can see that it was a fresh clear cut. So that's going to age it about 22 years ago. This is only about a year or two old. So you get an idea. I like to look around 15 to 20-year-old clear cuts. They could be older. Sometimes you can find ones that are younger. Less than 15, you don't find the trees are quite tall enough to give you some openings. The trees typically aren't big enough if you're using a climber. But definitely around 15 to 20 is a nice area to start. They could be later. It could be older trees, older forest areas that'll work out for you. But going back ahead, just tell you how I came into this area. So this was the area that I was looking at where I want to start investigating this clear cut. So I marked this corner on my Garmin, and I just came in the Jeep trail. If you've been to Ocala, you know most of the Jeep trails and roads run north, south, east, and west. It's all kind of a grid pattern. I just came down this Jeep trail till I was parallel with the spot marked on my Garmin and just went ahead and cut in. I got a path marked for that. As I cut in, looked around here, nothing too interesting. And as I came over, I found a deer run cutting in here. So I took this up. It's about 150 to 200 yards. Walked up to this spot here, and this is where I found a nice, very interesting area. As I walked around up here, I found some other deer runs that intersected. One that came across, the first one I walked in on, it continued up here, but this one that crossed then connected up with the outer edge trail that's typical on all clear cuts. And the deers were using this as well. There's a couple nice rubs on a tree right over here. And as you can see from my marker for my stand, I'm set up about 30 yards from each of these three trails. And as you can imagine, that's increasing your chances. Whatever trail those deer happen to use that day, these two run parallel. They could use one trail or the other. You are set up in a position to take a look at them. I've already got my tripod out there. It's a 360 tripod, so it allows me just to spin around and take a look at all three of these areas. Now, just blindly going out into a clear cut and tromping through the brush and trying to find these areas can be very difficult. A lot of times I find a run that's entering, and even those runs that enter are going to be really thick. You got to push through them pretty well. But in my years, as I marked deer runs and my trails, I happened to notice something about Google Earth. If you go back in time, and I'm going to erase these trails, we're going to go back to 1995 to that initial image. If we can just jump to 95. There we go. So as you can see, there's these white lines that come in and cut through this deer run. There's a faint one over here. What I think these are from, and it's a little more evident from the newer images, and I'll show you some of these. These are the rows that the logging trucks were using as they were clearing this area. The tractors and trucks came in on these areas, and it just essentially created a nice sandy, I guess, concave spot, I would say. And this tends not to grow up as fast as everything else. But as fast as everything grows up in Florida, these quickly get shaded over. And as everything grows up, they stay clean and free of vegetation. It's just sandy. They get no light from the initial on point. We're going to jump 4 years ahead. And as you can see, it's all pretty much covered over. And if I go back there and I put those deer runs back on that I had up before, you see they fall right in line with these. So if you're going out, you're going to go out blind, you want to look for some areas to scout. First thing that I would do is kind of check out, get an idea of what you're looking for, but go back 10, 15 years, check out some of these clear cuts. If the clear cut looks young, go back to when it was first done and look for these trails. Mark these spots. Here you can see, take this icon away. You can see there's already an intersection right here. I did not see this on my initial scouting. I was actually looking more down in this area. And it turns out that right there, they're still using this. These are deer runs. 20 years later, they're still using because it doesn't grow up with anything. So now, just because I'm going to be a nice guy, I'm going to show you a few areas that I've kind of looked at on Google Earth. I've not gone out and scouted them simply because once you got 2 or 3 stand spots, it's about all you need, and really just don't have time to scout the entire forest. But I'm going to show one area here. This is an area I'm watching. Could be a little young right now. So if you look at this area, this is Forestry Road 11. It's the paved road, heads down to the gun range. And this, I believe, is the drivable road. This is Forestry Road 50. And a little further over is going to be 33. This is still the Hopkins Prairie area. So this area here I've been watching. It's fairly a new clear cut. We're going to go back in time to look when it was first cleared. Just going to go all the way back to 2004. So here you can see it's 2004, fairly fresh. It might have been even cleared in 2003. But as you look at it, you can see the trails that the logging trucks and tractors were using to go through this area and pull out the trees. They're still nice and visible. Looks like we got a little passing lane here. This could be an interesting spot. So we got a little intersection here, and also here we got a little break off and something coming up here. So this could be a good promising area. This is 4 years ago, so that puts it about 12 years. It's just coming up on that 15-year mark. It's still fairly new. Like I said, it's more of an area I've been watching. You have to get out there and scout, but if somebody wanted to go take a look at it currently, maybe set up, get in there. As you can see, the trees are closely packed together through here. It's probably created a nice canopy. You can make out some spots where the sand is showing. But it'd be worthwhile to go down and get in there, see if the deer signs are there, see if it's huntable yet. Maybe the trees aren't tall enough yet. But it's a good place to look, and it's that simple to find. Maybe as your scouting areas, you just go back and start around 2004 or even 99 and finding new clear cuts and that. These are different things you can do. So I'm going to take you over to another spot. If I can find it. Ah, here we go. So this is an interesting spot. Has more promise to be scouted this year. So I'm going to go back just a few years. Let's see when they did the clear cut. See, 2008 here. This is Forestry Road 33. This is either 50 or this is the next one up from the Forestry 50. I'm not sure which one this is. But as you see, back in 2008, it's about maybe a year or two old clear cut here. There's probably a lot of pressure. It's an easy walk, easy place to park on the road. This would be a common place to hunt. You got a little pinch point there. I don't know how many people hunted it. Like I mentioned in the article, when clear cuts are new, I don't bother hunting on them. Deer aren't typically going to walk across, and I say typically. It's not to say they never are going to walk across, but aren't typically going to walk across these fields. They may use the outskirt edge pattern, but and this is something I want to show you here. I'm going to show you as I go back in time why they may not be using this trail here, but may actually be back in this area and walking right behind all the hunters that are sitting out here. Now, as we go up to fast forward, 2016, this is much older, probably too high. You're not hunting the edge. There may be still some people hunting this trail line if it's still open for them, if it hasn't grown in too much. But you're not going to probably get as many hunters in this area. So the pressure's kind of dropped off a little bit. So now I'm going to take you back. This actually goes to 94. We're going to back up to 95. Right here, we got that 22-year-old clear cut sitting right behind. This is the area that had been currently clear cut. You can see the trees are really tall. You can see the shadows along there. And as you can see here, there's the remnant of what was probably the logging truck roads that cut in as this was being cleared out. So this would be a good area to look. Actually, all the terrain sets up. You've got these little underbrush areas, the outskirts, as I said, the boundaries between clear cuts tend to stay open, and the deer will use those even after they grow up as well. So you got these outer boundaries and possibly a deer run. Haven't been out to scout this. It's a little tidbit for any of you who took time to read my articles, want some good places to go look. Here's a good area. This may be a good ambush point. You got multiple trails coming together. Now I'm going to go back to current times, and you're going to see how grown up all this is. Nicely tight, packed trees. You're likely going to have not too much underbrush on them. That's just me speculating once again. I haven't been out there scouting. And you got a nice pinch point right here. Maybe there's a spot you can set up. That's a fairly short walk. Likely maybe somebody's already hunting it, but maybe they haven't pushed into here. This still, there's that trail that cut through here. This could still be some nice areas to hunt. It's a good area to go out and look. So if you check any of these out, find anything good, you want to email me or post a comment on the website, please do. Let me know how you fared in these areas. And I hope this was all informative to y'all.